Welcome to Chef Debbie's Kitchen, where today we're going to be making one of our family favorites. It is a stuffed meat shell, and my husband requests this for his birthday every year. It's a wonderful Italian favorite of ours. And so what I did is I went to my local butcher and I got 2 pounds of ground beef. I try to get like the 90%. And when I was there, we had a nice talk, the butcher and I, and he suggested putting in Italian sausage. So that's what I'm going to do today. I got some nice ground Italian sausage, and I've got a couple pounds of ground beef that we're going to put in my preheated skillet over here, which I have had on for a little bit. And in my skillet, I've got melted about almost 4 tablespoons of butter. And we want it to come up to temperature a little bit more. And we're going to brown all this meat together. There we go. There's our ground beef. And there's our Italian sausage. Now you're probably wondering, that's an awful lot of meat. Yes, it really is for this recipe, but I'll tell you what, if you don't get to stuff a whole box of those big jumbo shells, you can always use the leftover to throw in anything. If you want to make a vegetable, throw a little meat in it. If you want to make a little potatoes on the stove sliced, throw a bit of this leftover meat. The good news is, whenever you make too much of anything, you can always be creative and use it somehow in another way. So what we're going to do is just brown all this meat together. And you want it to be relatively high, your pan to be high, enough heat. That's a lot of meat. It's going to take roughly, to get all the pink out, probably 5 to 7 minutes. And then we'll see, we'll show you what we're going to do next. There, this has been cooking. You can see we've got all the pink out of our ground beef and our Italian sausage. And it's been cooking in the butter. And now what I'm going to do is to that I'm going to add garlic. Gotta have garlic. This is a little different. You notice we're browning the meat first. It got to absorb all the butter. We're adding our onion. And now we're adding some celery. I'm excited to see how this will turn out because this is the first time I've done it with Italian sausage. And I'll tell you, it really does pay to get good meat. If you could smell this, it is wonderful. That little bit of Italian sausage I got from my butcher really is adding a nice flavor. I could just taste it already. We have quite a few more ingredients to add to this. That smells so good, just with the celery, the onion, and the garlic. And now what we're going to do is we are going to simmer this covered for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and see what other wonderful ingredients we put in. Okay, here is our meat concoction here that was simmering, covered for 15 minutes with the celery, onion, and garlic. And remember, in this I've got my Italian sausage and ground beef, which gives it that extra pizzazz. You can, if you want to make a more healthy stuffed meat shell, you could use turkey, or you could use half turkey, half beef. Do whatever you want. So now what I'm going to do at this stage, I've got some salt and pepper. I've got some of my Pecorino Romano cheese. Oh yes. And I've got some panko breadcrumbs. Oh, just stir all that in. There we go. And then we're going to add some of my cream sherry. And I usually put about 1/3, maybe to 1/2 cup of the sherry. And now is the time you want to put that in, because that, oh, look at that big chunk of cheese. That can't go in there. It has to, it's too chunky. So you get to reap the benefits when you see chunks of cheese. Oh, this smells wonderful. And you know, if you want to add a little bit more cheese, if you feel you want a more cheesier taste, a little bit more sherry, I personally find that I have to add a little bit more sherry. So you know what, folks? Feel free, do whatever you want. The next stage in this recipe is letting this cool, because it's really too hot to stuff and hold a shell in your hand. So when we come back, I've got some mozzarella cheese that I've grated. This was another idea. I've never made it like this, but my butcher and I were talking and he said, throw some grated cheese in there of mozzarella. So we're gonna do that when we come back. We're gonna let this cool about 10 minutes. All right, we have our cool down meat mixture, and into this I have shredded 1/2 pound of mozzarella. And I, again, have not done this part before, but who doesn't like cheese, right? So I'm going to just stir this all in here nicely. Now, folks, the reason why I didn't put the mozzarella in at the very beginning was because the meat mixture was way too hot. And you know what? I didn't want a melted, stringy mess. So you want to let the meat cool down about 15 minutes, and after you've added the last few ingredients, and then put in the mozzarella. Look at that. So what we have here is just, you know, the mozzarella threaded, except for this big chunk. We'll have to eat that one later. We've got the mozzarella shredded, and it's threaded throughout our meat mixture, which will make it nice and easy for stuffing, which we are going to do right now. And I have already, right here, I have a pan, a colander of my big shells, as you can see. I've boiled them in some nice boiling water for about, oh, maybe 5 minutes. Get my little, and then I cooled them down. I put some running cold water on the pasta so that I can touch it and I can stuff it. So this is about, let's see, this is not quite a pound of, just get any big box of jumbo shell macaroni and boil it up. I think I boiled it for maybe 5 or 6 minutes, that's all. Because you want it to still be a little on the firm side, and you want, so that you can cook it, I'm sorry. We're just making these to freeze. Okay? Fill it up there, give it a good spoonful of the meat and cheese mixture. I start out with my teaspoon, and you want to stuff your little shell like that. I always put about another half in there for good taste. Squeeze it a little bit together, set it here on your tray, because this tray, I sprayed it lightly with some of my my Pam here, and just in case they stick. They probably won't, because I'm going to stick these in the freezer for at least 2 to 3 hours uncovered, and then what I'm going to do is stick it in my big freezer bag. I got some nice airtight freezer bags that you can stick them in, and then when it's time for birthday dinner or whatever, you want to invite a family over, just go and take them out of the freezer and put them on a glass dish and put your favorite sauce on there. I've got some of my homemade sauce already in my freezer ready to go. And you know what, folks, this is such a nice way to make a really fancy meal quickly, because you've done all the work before the night of your party or your meal that you're going to have friends over. So we're going to get all this into these shells. As you can see, I have much more meat mixture than shells. I'll probably have to boil a little bit more so we can get them all frozen. And if you'd like this recipe, please go to my website at memorableFoodDishes.com. Enjoy.